please put your hands down for welcoming Balan and Slava to the keynote. Yeah.
So it's great to be here again. So as Sarano was saying, I run the product team at Microsoft that's responsible for some of our integration services and some of our app platform services as well. I was here back in 2022, and at that time, my goal in this talk was to talk about how integration was going to be critical for digital transformation. A lot hasn't changed since 2022. Weather is still the same. I'm probably gotten a little older, and my ability to deal with jet lag has gotten a little worse. But for the most part, things haven't changed that much on the personal side. But there's something new, and that is generative AI. So the thing about generative AI is it's not a hype anymore, right? It's real, and it's happening now. What we're seeing is AI is reshaping our world, whether that is how we use AI personally or how different organizations use AI. And what it's doing is really making what was impossible before a lot more possible now. And that's through all the way from natural language processing to visual understanding. So you can now rely on your generative AI systems to actually do much of the work that you had to do manually before. We're also seeing how a couple of years ago, maybe AI was seen more as a cost, and the ROI of AI wasn't really well understood. But now we're seeing most of our customers look at it as a strategic differentiator and starting to see more and more ROI from it. We're also seeing a whole bunch of new use cases. Pretty much every day, we're excited to see how our customers are using AI in many different ways. We're seeing AI used for customer experience personalization in the retail industry. We see it being used for drug discovery and for optimizing processes in manufacturing. We're also seeing agents becoming more and more popular in the insurance industry. And what's exciting is a large majority of our existing customer base and organizations of all sizes are looking at AI and looking at how they can integrate that into their existing processes and applications. So in my 9 years at Microsoft, it's been really exciting to see how the mix of customers has changed over time. And AI has been one of those pivot points where we're seeing the customer mix change drastically. We're also seeing both internal and external processes being impacted by AI. My colleagues here are probably tired about this example that I use all the time. But it's really exciting to me. And my favorite example is how one of our financial services customer was able to very quickly take their existing customer management process, and with just a few lines of code, they were able to bring OpenAI-based summarization into it. And that's just taken their customer experience management to the next level. And now they're able to kind of look at all the input that they're getting from their customers from different channels. And they're able to get a better picture of, what is that customer doing with their company, and what is the sentiment of that customer, and also understanding what are the potential ways to work with that customer. And that's really powerful. So what we're seeing is also that intelligence is the new baseline for modern applications, right? Like, a few years ago, it was every organization needed to have a website, and then it was they needed to have a mobile application. And what we're seeing now is it's not so much that they need to have AI, it's that there's so many benefits that they're recognizing that it's just become natural for them to either infuse AI into their existing applications or building new applications with generative AI. And through this talk, we hope to show you how integration becomes core to both of that. But before we move on, what makes an application truly intelligent? From what we see two main characteristics. One, intelligent applications make it easy for the users to find the information that they are looking for. And a big part of that is the second point, which is they help surface the right data. So it's not just give you access to data, but making sure it can do AI can be leveraged to do the summarizations and help you more quickly get to the answers that you're looking for. So one thing for us to think about is we are most often exposed to AI through chatbots. But whether it is chatbots or autonomous agents that work behind the scenes, you can kind of summarize the value we see from AI into 4 buckets. One, there is the time efficiency, time savings. And then there is the efficiency that comes from having fewer errors and being able to get to the right data quickly. To increasing customer satisfaction. And we also see how AI is manifesting itself for internal employee use as well. So many of our customers, they end up using generative AI not only for their products that their end users use, but also internally in terms of improving employee productivity. And just within our organization, of course, we use tools like GitHub Copilot for all our software engineering work. But a lot of our product managers now use generative AI, whether that is doing market research or being able to figure out marketing content that they need to put out, or even understanding the usage of their products. And our goal is to today and through this conference talk to you about how integration developers can also benefit from AI, both in the work that they do and the kinds of applications that they're building. And just to make the point about how real the impact is, just a couple of examples here. Dentsu, which is a social marketing firm out of Japan, they were able to equip all of their analysts. So that's the other point about generative AI is how it democratizes information. They were able to basically equip all of their analysts to take very quick decisions as part of their media campaign planning. And it went down from having to spend days trying to understand the ROI of running a media campaign to just a couple of minutes, and every analyst can do that now. McKesson is processing 70% more data than before in terms of finding cancer patient, in terms of improving cancer patient outcomes. And H&R Block actually uses Azure integration services together with AI Foundry, allowing them to run their tax assistant. And of course, during tax season, that's a busy time. They're able to support more than 1 million users during that time. Air India is another example that uses Azure, and they use Azure to handle customer support queries. 97% of their 4 million requests every month is being handled by generative AI, and that lets their customer service agents focus on more important things. And this is just the beginning. We believe we are still very early. This is the first innings, but it's really awesome to see all the impact people are seeing from generative AI today. So how can you really make this real for your company and for yourself? We think there are basically 3 areas that you need to invest in. One is clearly understanding what are the use cases that you're going after. That we believe is kind of the biggest planning thing that you will need to do to clearly understand what is the business metric that you're trying to drive with generative AI. And from that follows all the work that you do in terms of what data are you going to use, what actions are you going to automate, and that's what helps you recognize that ROI. Secondly, and this is where integration plays a key role, is modernizing your application and data real estate. If we thought data silos and disconnected workflows were a problem for digital transformation, it's an even bigger problem for generative AI applications. And finally, you need a platform and the right kind of operations. So the thing that's different about generative AI applications is that the feedback loop is much tighter. What we're seeing most of our customers do is very quickly learn from how their end users are using the generative AI applications and use it either to improve their models or their prompts or even some of the workflows that they have behind the scenes so that they can very quickly iterate on the value that they can offer. So if we look at kind of what's coming next, and this talks kind of like it's happening, let's say next year, but it's happening now, is a lot of organizations are looking at how agents can be introduced, both in terms of their customer-facing processes, but also all the internal processes that they have. And this is just a data point that stresses how important it is for all of us as integration developers to start thinking about how are agents going to impact integrations and how are integrations going to support the creation of new agents. Just a few more data points. 93% of organizations are experimenting with multiple models. So a few years ago, it all used to be just OpenAI, but we have so many different models that we can't even keep count now. So the key thing here is, again, for organizations to understand which models to use for what purpose and to drive what ROI. Some models are really good at doing summarization. Others are really good at doing planning. Others are really good in terms of executing actions on behalf of the user. So figuring out the right model to use is a challenge, and it opens up the opportunity for getting better ROI out of these investments. Now, all that sounds great, but the last data point is probably the one we need to pay most attention to. Now, this data is from 2024, October 2024, where 70% of generative AI applications are not moving to production. So while that sounds really bad, it's kind of interesting to put that into the context of the number of apps that are being created and the number of prototypes. It's an order of magnitude higher than what we saw before. So while there's a lot of interest and a lot of investment in generative AI, moving into production still serves as a challenge. I would say right now it's about 50% of these applications, but it's still quite bad. So what are some of the challenges? We already spoke about model selection and deployment as a challenge. When you think about, for example, how are you going to introduce generative AI into your business process, where do you start, right? And we'll talk a little bit later about how Azure provides you the right tools to figure out which models to use and also how to incorporate them effectively into your applications. The other challenge that is probably more relevant to this audience here is how many of the complex workflows, we still haven't figured out a way on how to get agents to work with those, either in terms of introducing agents into those complex workflows or helping agents automate and execute those complex workflows on behalf of users. A big challenge with generative AI overall is content safety. Again, we'll talk about how Azure helps you with that. And observability and governance has always been a challenge, but it's all the more important because you have more pieces now. You have the models that you need to observe. You have your own prompts that you need to observe. You also have to look at, are your agents making the right decisions? Are they looking at the right data? And are the actions that they're executing actually happening? And finally, tool sprawl. We can talk about this in two ways. One is there's a whole bunch of new frameworks, there's a whole bunch of tools that you can use for AI. It's also expanded the scope of what developers like yourselves or many of yourselves need to worry about. So it's no longer just tools for writing your applications and testing them. It's also tools for fine-tuning your models. It's tools for getting the right data. It's tools for testing the entire workflow of how the model does the planning and the execution using the tools that you provide to it. Let's take a simple example. We built this application, or some of my colleagues built this application for Build. So if you think about, let's say we want to build a podcast factory, right? So we're going to help folks like Michael kind of run their podcast more effectively. So if you look at kind of some of the processes or some of the steps involved in that process, I won't go through all of this, but you can kind of, it's kind of intuitive. You got to find guests. You got to build the actual content, and then you need to figure out how to package it and get it out to as many users as possible. The problem with that is some of these steps are really time and resource intensive, right? So for example, for guest intake, you have to go find their bios. You got to figure out how to summarize everything that they've done and make that available publicly through different channels. And that gets to the promotion part of it. Once you have your podcast ready, how are you going to get that out there into as many channels as possible? And then one of the biggest places where AI can help is dealing with large volumes of multimodal data. So whether that's audio or video or just text transcripts, that's where generative AI is really good at. But in general, there's a lot of time that gets wasted in just working with tons and tons of data and trying to bring summaries and get it out there to as many users as possible. So if we look at where can agentic AI really help, we spoke about kind of having to work through different kinds of data. There's a lot of places where you're doing the same thing over and over again, whether that is generating transcripts and show notes, or finding the right links to put in your show notes before you publish them, checking to make sure those links, things like that. Then there is the old, how do you keep data fresh, right? Like, let's say you're talking about a particular topic and you already prepared like the social media campaign to get that podcast out there, and now something new happens in that space. How do you keep that updated all the time? Making sure you have the right quality and compliance checks. That's an important part of having a quality podcast that you can do it on a durable basis for a long period of time. And finally, having the right analytics loops so that you can understand how are users consuming your content and making sure you're doing the right changes in your processes based off of that. So before we go any further though, let's talk a little bit about what is an agent, right? So I think the key characteristics of an agent is that it uses an LLM to do planning. So that's a big difference between an agent and a tool. Tools can use LLMs as well. So for example, you could have a tool that uses an LLM to do summarization. Um, it's not an agent because it's not using the LLM to do the planning. Now, that might sound a little scary when we think about all the different kinds of processes that folks like you are building. But that's where we think thoughtful use of agents as part of your business processes are the way to go. Um, so LLMs have instructions. So previously, what you had to write in a really long workflow, as Slava will probably show later, can now be composed using natural language, right? So these are instructions that you give to the LLM on how to do the planning and the execution. And to do the actual execution, it uses a bunch of different tools. And we'll talk later about how MCP, or Model Context Protocol, plays into some of that. And finally, you have a whole bunch of inputs. So in a conversational chatbot kind of agent, these inputs come from the end user. But agents can also be talking to each other, and that's the A2A protocol that Google recently introduced and Microsoft's gotten behind. And all of these, you don't have to worry about supporting them because Azure can take care of all these different emerging protocols, whether you're building conversational chatbots or you're building autonomous agentic systems. So now if we take our podcast example, this is probably one way where we could structure the podcast factory. And these are all different agents that all use LLMs to do different things. As we talked about earlier, one of the big benefits of generative AI is you can offer natural language interfaces, whether that is to your workflows or to your applications or even to your data. So when we think about all the agents that you had to build, and now you look at how are you going to build them, Azure offers different choices. So you can invest in just building these agents using frameworks like semantic kernel or LangGraph, and you can run them on VMs or on containers. Or you can use a platform as a service such as Azure AI Foundry, where we have a dedicated agent service. And what the agent service does is help simplify some of the common tasks, like how do you create these agents? How do you define these agents? A lot of these agents are declarative. There is very little code. And then how do you test them? How do you evaluate them, right? Because agents are non-deterministic. You want to have a really strong evaluation suite so that you can kind of look at what are the different kinds of inputs that this agent might receive and how it will probably react to them. And finally, we have the SaaS, which is Copilot Studio. We believe that's largely for the business analyst and the citizen developer audience. So today we'll talk, and through this couple of days, we'll talk more about how our integration services come together with Azure AI Foundry. So what is Azure AI Foundry? So at the heart of AI Foundry is the models that we provide. And we give you, a very wide choice of models, all the way from OpenAI to like really small language models. And you can host them on the platform in different ways. You can host them in a serverless fashion. You can host them on your dedicated compute. And then, like I mentioned, we provide the agent service. And what the agent service does is provide the durable communication between the different agents. It helps you build and test these agents and also run them in production. And there's a whole bunch of custom focused services for specific areas. So for example, we have the speech translation service talking about the ROI that AI provides. My personal experience, I had to do a similar talk for a Japanese audience a couple of weeks ago. And I was able to use the speech translation service to convert all of my demo videos into Japanese. And I'm told by the audience that it was pretty accurate. And finally, observability across all of these. That's one of the biggest reasons why you would look at Foundry. And again, we've done a lot of work to integrate integration services into Foundry. So if you're building agentic workflows using, say, something like Logic Apps, which Slava is going to talk about next, you get end-to-end visibility around what is happening in the agentic portion together with what is happening with your workflows that are being planned and executed by the agent. So just to make the point about agents, this is kind of, models. This is kind of what we had a couple of years ago, and this is where we are now. So what agent service does is help you make this trade-off between performance and price as it comes to models. Now, the way you evaluate models is going to be different from the way you maybe evaluated other APIs in the past. At the end of the day, you access models as APIs. But it's not just like the latency or the throughput that you're worried about. You're worried about things like accuracy, groundedness, and the ability to come up with the right plans and execute them. So what AI Foundry does is give you this workbench where you can take a bunch of models and compare them for your particular use case and pick the best one that makes the most sense for your particular use case. And then agent service, the screenshot here is kind of showing how you can create agents either declaratively or using code. But the key thing is the observability, being able to see through each invocation of the agent what is happening as part of the planning, what is happening as part of the execution. And this gets a lot more useful when you start thinking about multi-agent workflows. And there are many different orchestration patterns. A lot of it is what you're all used to with business processes, kind of just adapted for the agentic systems. The most important thing for agents is knowledge. And this is actually where we see like the data point earlier about 50 to 70% of projects not moving from proof of concept to production. The key reason we see that happening is because people didn't have the right data. So we've done the work in the Foundry agent service to integrate with a whole bunch of knowledge sources. And again, we'll talk more about this, but Logic Apps brings a whole lot in terms of the different knowledge sources that you can now connect to, and also the different kinds of data that you can now consume. But not only for collecting knowledge, but also for taking actions. These are the integrations that we've done. And you're probably very familiar with the OpenAPI integration, but Logic Apps and functions take it one step above so that you can execute your serverless code, or you can execute your existing actions. So one of our biggest customers, the way they want to start, they're a consulting company, one of the biggest in India. And they want to start with taking planning as the primary reason for using agents, but keeping all the execution still very deterministic by hooking into the existing business processes and workflows that their customers have already built. So now, if you go back to our podcast factory as a service, just to illustrate the complexity here, if we were to now take our podcast factory that we built for ourselves and make that available as a service that we want to offer to multiple customers, these are all the different challenges we need to deal with. There's a whole bunch of new data sources that we need to work with and different kinds of data. We need to take actions through many different tools. Some of our models might be shared across multiple agents. So then we need to think about, like, if you were to apply our traditional API management concepts here, we need to think about how are we going to load balance across those agents? How are we going to prioritize the traffic from those agents? How are we going to observe and manage all the requests that are coming from these agents to the models? And you might use very custom models to do some of these agentic tasks. And finally, you might be building your own models and continuously fine-tuning and training them for specific agents. So to summarize kind of why the app platform matters, and where I'm heading to here is really to show how we have Foundry as the platform that helps you work with models and build your agents. But we also have an app platform that we believe completes the picture and gives you all the tools and the platform that you need to build these real-world agentic applications. So we kind of already spoke about this, but the key points here, how do you ingest data from different sources? How do you take actions on different systems? And these are all probably things that are very familiar to you as integration developers. How do you prioritize, optimize, and safeguard model usage? That goes back to the ROI point we were making earlier. One aspect of improving ROI is to reduce your costs. So you got to kind of think about that upfront in terms of how you're going to design your system to be most optimal. And finally, customizing models. Like in this case, you might customize the model that you have for all of your customers. Or, as we were talking about earlier, AI opens up new revenue streams. So you can kind of think about the podcast factory as offering like a custom model for each customer and being able to charge for that. So now let's get to the real stuff. So these are some of our announcements from Build. So what we've done is integrated Logic Apps connectors into Azure AI Search. And what this does is bring the entire ecosystem of Logic Apps connectors natively into Azure AI Search. So now you can set up very efficient data processing pipelines. And the more important thing is these data pipelines are real time in that they can keep your data updated or your indices in your vector store updated every time the source data changes. The other thing we've done on the other side is integrate logic apps and functions for tool calling from AI Foundry. So when you create an agent in Azure AI Foundry, it's very easy to have it call some of your existing workflows, or you can create your new serverless functions and wire them up to your agents as well. This one's not so much related to integration, but it's still one of the innovations that we have on the platform. As you're all probably aware, GPUs are probably the scarcest resources today. And we have some capabilities in the platform where we can offer GPUs in serverless fashion. So if you want to start experimenting with including generative AI into some of your business processes, you don't have to wait for to get some capacity from Azure to start your proof of concepts. You can use something like ACA to host some of your models and start using it from within your proof of concepts. One of the interesting things we saw over the last couple of years is how quickly our customers started using API management in front of their models. And this started with simple use cases where they wanted to load balance between multiple instances of the same model, maybe set up across multiple regions because of capacity constraints. And then they moved on to load balancing between models based on the use case and based on which application is calling the APIM endpoint. And this allowed them to load balance between different kinds of models, whether they were models hosted on Azure or Google Cloud or elsewhere. Then the biggest use we saw was customers wanted to understand how different applications and different agents were using those models. And APIM gave them that visibility. And we've kind of improved that quite a bit. One of the largest telecoms in Korea, for example, they wanted to build their own ChatGPT and make it available as a B2B service to other businesses. And now they wanted to understand which of those customers were using how much of their model capacity. So APIM turned out to be a great solution for that. But we're also seeing more advanced use of APIM, for example, with semantic caching. So you're all probably familiar with caching, and semantic caching just takes it to the next level where you can have some fuzzy logic or ambiguity in kinds of the requests that you get and being able to serve them from a cache so that you don't have to hit your models. So every time you hit your model, you're spending money. And semantic caching just helps you optimize how you're using your models. Content safety filtering, again, the same telecom customer had this mandate from their IT department about how anything that was generated through AI needed to go through content safety filters. And they were able to implement that very quickly using APIM. So instead of having to do that across their organization for each of the generative AI applications, they just sent everything through APIM and integrated content safety into APIM. The last one is kind of interesting, where we spoke a little bit about how with generative AI development, you need that continuous feedback loop. So one of the things we do with APIM is we capture all the prompts and all the requests that come from different customers and different users and all the responses that are being generated by the application using the models. And now we can feed that back into AI Foundry and use that to fine-tune your models. So there's different ways to optimize how your generative AI application behaves in the real world. One is you can do better prompt engineering. And we provide the capabilities to do that as well. The other is to build fine-tuned custom models for each use case. And that's where this logging capability in APIM comes handy. This is just an example of how easy it is to add semantic caching. It's just the policies that you're familiar with if you've used APIM. And we've just introduced a whole bunch of new policies that help you do more generative AI-related implementations. MCP is been the craze in the last couple of months. So MCP is Model Context Protocol. You can think about it as a layer on top of Open API that helps agents provide the context to the different tools, or vice versa, for tools to provide some better metadata about what they can do, and for agents to be able to seamlessly figure out which tools to use for performing certain tasks. Now, if you think about it, you need the same kinds of governance and management for APIs now for MCP servers. And that's what we've done with API management and API Center. We made it super easy for a developer to take their existing APIs. Now, a quick thing about MCP is, pretty much every company out there, every service company out there is offering an MCP server, right? So there's an MCP server for UiPath, there's an MCP server for Atlassian, there's an MCP server for ServiceNow. But we also believe customers will want to build their own MCP servers out of their own APIs, and that's what we've enabled with API management. And the key thing there is we've done a lot of work in API management to make it more serverless so that it's very quick to set up and it's very inexpensive to set up. And we've kind of had to do that to support these generative AI use cases because it is expensive to build these applications, and we don't want to keep adding expenses at every step along the way. You can also use Azure Functions to build and run your own MCP servers, and you can put them behind API management as well. One of the challenges that we saw with MCP early on is that there wasn't a great credential management story or basically a great authorization story. And what we've done is leverage Credential Manager in API management to help with that. So now you can do on behalf of authentications. You can also do single tokens for accessing MCP servers. And the really nice thing with API management is you can be selective about which operations you want to expose through your MCP servers and who you want to expose them to. We've also introduced organizational registries with API Center for MCP servers. Given the proliferation of MCP that we see among our customers, we kind of had to do this. And finally, we've made it super easy to use these MCP servers from GitHub Copilot, VS Code, and Copilot Studio. So I've been talking for a while, so I'll play a quick video here that shows a demo of how to create MCP servers. What's going on? Well, I'll have to skip it. But basically, the way it would work is you would go to API management, you would pick one of your APIs, and with just a couple of clicks, you'd be able to create an MCP server with authorization built in. I'm sorry, I don't know why this one's not playing, but it was actually a very quick demo. It was only 55 seconds to show how easy it is to create MCP servers from APIs. And I'm sure Julia Casper's session on this will cover this in more detail. So just to summarize what we've done for MCP, we've taken a kind of a platform-wide approach for MCP. So it's not like we're just enabling MCP with APIM or with Logic Apps. We're doing it across the platform. So if you go to AI Foundry, it's going to be super easy for agents that you create in AI Foundry to use MCP. And like we discussed, super easy to create these MCP servers and use them from your applications. So I'm going to go a little bit fast here because Slava needs time to talk about all the really cool stuff that we're doing in the platform. So I'll skip through all of this. The one thing I want to show you is Microsoft actually runs on Azure AI Foundry. So many of the products that you see from Microsoft, including the Bing Copilot or the Microsoft M365 Copilot, they all run on top of AI Foundry. So if you think about what we've done now with AI Foundry and together with our application platform, we're giving you the AI application platform, right? So you obviously have Foundry, but then you also have the integration services now integrated into Foundry, and then we have the data platform. And together, what we're able to do is give you the end-to-end workflow, where, of course, as we spoke earlier, planning is an important step in building generative AI applications. But as you develop, operate, and manage them, we've done the integration between all the different pieces that you're going to use so that this is going to be seamless for you. So just to summarize my portion of the talk, so if you think about how you're going to transform your business, we spoke about earlier how AI is universally applicable. You can use generative AI in many different use cases, whether that's backend applications, business processes, or customer-facing conversational chatbots. We believe it will help with reinventing customer experiences and driving new revenue streams. But there are some challenges, particularly around how do you break the data silos? How do you get better automation? And how do you get that enterprise promises that most of your customers are going to need? With that, I'll turn it over to Slava to talk a little bit more about how we're going to enable that.
All right, guys, let's do a little reset and warm up. So how many of you wish this conference started at 12 p.m. so we don't need to do 9 a.m. keynote? All right, thank you. So far we've talked a lot about agents and how to build agents, but single agents on their own are not enough. Enterprise automation is not about just responding to messages and summarizing emails. It's about coordinating multiple steps and systems to achieve specific outcome. And this is where agentic workflows comes in. They may involve one agent or multiple agents. Some of them run sequentially, some operate in parallels. Some involve human in the loop, and most of them run fully autonomously. And this is where Logic Apps comes to play. It gives us the control, the integration, the governance to take agentic capabilities that we just discussed and build them into the real, grounded, real-life workflows. Which brings us to Agent Loop. This is a big step forward for Logic Apps. So how many of you had a chance to play with Agent Loop or heard about Agent Loop before? All right, a few. So that's going to be a new content for majority of the audience then. So Agent Loop is built in Logic Apps, and it allows you to build autonomous or conversational agents right inside the Logic Apps standard. You bring your model, you bring your system prompt, you bring your tools, and agents run natively as part of your workflow. In fact, they act like any other Logic Apps action, but they are powered by LLM. So you can use Logic Apps connections as the tools. You can call APIs, you can work with structured or unstructured data, and integrate everything that Logic Apps can reach to. And if you want to build workflows fully or partially powered by agents or LLMs, so Agent Loop is the way for you to do that. So agents don't just think, they talk too, and Agent Loop natively support building conversational agents. We introduced the concept of a flexible concept of channels that let you send messages to an agent and stream responses back while workflow is still running. This enables real-time interactive conversations across Teams, Slack, and all other communication channels. And to make development easier, we also embedded the chat testing capability right into Logic Apps Designer. Oops. Sorry, folks, we keep losing the screen. So we build the chat testing capabilities right into Logic Apps Designer so that you can simulate and debug your conversations without leaving your workflow context. It's a full loop experience for building conversational agents that can truly handle ongoing dynamic conversations. And of course, it doesn't stop on a single agent. Logic Apps Agent Loop support rich multi-agent orchestration. It provides support for pretty much all multi-agent patterns, including sequential and concurrent execution, loops, branching, handoff from agent to agent, group chat, and agentic coordination. Some of these patterns came naturally from the Logic Apps workflow engine, like loops and branching, fan out and fan in. Some, like groups chat, required us to build new primitives in the workflow engine to support. And because you have full power of Logic Apps, you can also mix agentic steps with deterministic steps in the same workflow, building the full end-to-end workflow orchestration. So you can let agents handle reasoning, ambiguity, and exploration, and let the workflow provide the structure, sequence, and governance. This is how you take agentic AI from the prototype into something reliable and production ready. One of the most powerful aspects of Agent Loop is the deep integration with AI Foundry and agent service. So you can build agents and logic apps that will entirely run inside logic apps runtime using semantic kernel, and they will have full access to connectors, deterministic steps, and workflow orchestration. But you can also use the same agent loop to define agents in Foundry, in the AI Foundry that Balan just talked about. So same model, same prompts, same tool bindings, but now those agents are executed in Foundry-hosted agent runtime. And this unlocks additional operational benefits. So agents that registered with Foundry can you have access to evals and benchmarking for ongoing quality checks. You can integrate with responsible AI services, and these agents can use shared knowledge and grounding tools. So in both models, you are building with the same interface, which is logic app standard interface, but the difference is where and how your agents run and what additional capabilities you can leverage by selecting your runtime. And it's been just 2 weeks since we launched Agent Loop, so I'm not surprised, not that many of you have a chance to try it yet. So we announced the public preview at Build, but the adoption has been really fast. So as of now, hundreds of customers across different industries like finance, cybersecurity, IT services, operations already jumped in, and they've built and run more than 1,500 agents that together generated 500 million, or together use 500 million tokens from our Foundry services. What's more impressive is the variety of use cases that these agents cover and implement. So we see agents that generate project estimates, map data between different systems, handle tickets, and process invoices. And we even have agents that play games. So some of those are early experiments, of course. Others are already powering real-life workflows. And either way, this traction shows how quickly teams are moving from static automation to adaptive intelligent orchestration. So if you haven't tried Agent Loop yet, now it's the time, because we might be biased, but it's the fastest and easiest way to build agents that are grounded and have access to your real-time data, real-time systems, and your business applications. We'll have a session dedicated to Agent Loop later today, so please join and learn more about this new capability. So as Balan was talking about, AI adoption is exploding, and integration is quickly becoming the limiting factor. So Microsoft projects that over 1 billion agents will be in use within the next 3 years. Just think about this number, right? So it's over 1 billion agents in the next 3 years. And these agents will not operate in isolation. They will need real-time, low-latency access to data, to business data and business system. They will need to connect to your SaaS applications, legacy systems, and even on-prem environments. And they are going to drive even more demand for a strong integration backbone. In fact, as you can see, Gartner predicts that iPaaS market is expected to nearly double by 2028, mostly driven by the AI acceleration. To meet this scale, your integration platform must evolve. So let's take a look how Azure Integration Services can help you with this. Many of you have seen this picture before, but just to kind of quickly give you the run of what the Azure Integration Services is. So Azure Integration Services provide or offers a comprehensive integration platform as a service solution that let you connect legacy and cloud systems, SaaS applications with real-time data pipeline, on-prem platforms with AI services, all securely and efficiently. With the core products of Azure Integration Services, like Azure Logic Apps, API Management, Service Bus, and Event Grid, you can accelerate AI adoption with pre-built connectors and templates, expose AI models as APIs to make them reusable across your organization, govern and secure AI interaction with the enterprise-grade API security, and streamline data flows, fueling your AI with the real-time accurate information. So with Azure Integration Services, you gain the flexible, future-ready platform that accelerates AI at scale. And you don't need to take our word for it. So we see how Integration Services helps customers to transform their integration across industries. So here's an example. Visa's data platform team manages a vast ecosystem of over 100 HR systems. So 100 HR systems, including Workday, ADP, and multiple recruitment platforms. So by consolidating and modernizing their integration approach with Azure Integration Services, Visa increased integration efficiency by 30%, cut developer onboarding time by 40%, and reduced infrastructure maintenance costs by 95%. So that's not just a better platform experience, it's meaningful savings in time, cost, and operational complexity. Another example comes from the public sector, and that's Brisbane City Council. They serve over 1 million residents and support multiple smaller councils. Their integration journey spans 15 years, but it was the shift from legacy to cloud-native solution that became the game changer, unlocking efficiency, scalability, and giving them the path to AI-driven automation. So as we mentioned several times before, Azure Integration Services operates at massive scale. So we process petabytes of data, billions of workflows, actions, trillions of API requests every month. Our customer base also continues to grow across all industry verticals and all sizes, from small and medium companies to Fortune 500 enterprises. And our scale and pace of innovation hasn't gone unnoticed. For 7th year in a row, Microsoft has been named a leader in Gartner Magic Quadrant for Enterprise Integration Platform as a Service. And we advanced our position in both execution and vision, reflecting the strengths of our platform and the investment we are making to support the next generation of integration. And I would really encourage you to look at the report, which unfortunately I wasn't able to put on the slide due to some restrictions, to see that not everyone was able to keep up with the pace of innovation. And some of our very traditional, very strong competitors fell off the leader quadrant, not being able to deliver on the expectations for the modern integration platforms. So let's talk about innovation. Over these next 2 days, you will hear a lot about what's new across Azure Integration Services portfolio. Innovation for us is not just about adding new features. It's about making the entire platform more capable, more usable, and ready for the demands of modern intelligent automations. I'm not going to cover all the features that we delivered over 12 months. That would take the 2 days for me to do that. But I want to highlight just a few things that explain how we are doing that. So one of our key priorities has been delivering a more unified operational experience across Azure Integration Services. An integration environment, as you know, that's been in public preview for some time, provides a single pane of glass for managing integration applications. And we're building on that foundation. So with the latest public preview update, we bring a simplified experience for creating alerts, either single or in bulk, aggregated health insights for applications and the resources, and the dashboards for end-to-end message tracing, troubleshooting, and bulk resubmission. And alongside that, business process tracking is now generally available. It allows developers and business users to work together to define and track critical business processes, giving visibility into execution and outcomes. So together, these updates help you go from monitoring services and resources to truly understanding how your business is running. Okay, now let's talk about hybrid. So as much as we want it, not everything runs in cloud, and Azure Integration Services reflects this reality. So over the past few years, we've built a solid hybrid story. API Management Gateway and Event Grid have been available on-prem for quite a while. And today, I'm excited to say that Logic Apps Hybrid is now generally available. It allows you to run Logic Apps Standard on in your on-prem environment while managing them centrally from Azure Cloud Control Plane. And with this release, we also bring 2 new connectors. AMQP connector to integrate with on-prem message brokers like RabbitMQ, as well as the Kafka connector to support streaming and hybrid scenarios. With these components, Azure Integration Services offer you a comprehensive hybrid integration platform, enabling you to build, deploy, and manage your application that spans across cloud and on-prem while using the same development and management experience. We also have a lot of updates coming to our messaging services. Azure Event Hubs and Azure Service Bus are rolling out the general availability of the Geo data replication, enabling you to set up guaranteed message replication. So you can now safely fail over and fail back across clouds without data loss. Azure Event Grid MQTT continues to evolve now with a focus on security. With the public preview of custom GWT authentication, bring your own authentication leveraging webhooks and assigned client identities, we improve session management and operational control, further enhancing the scalability and flexibility of client authentication workflows. And Fabric event streams can now create a source that connects to Azure Event Grid namespaces, allowing you to route custom namespaces topics and MQTT data directly to your Fabric. And with this, now let's talk about a completely new way to build with Logic Apps. So we've heard it over and over again. You guys love Logic Apps, but developers still want to write the actual code. At the same time, they don't want to lose the simplicity of using Logic Apps triggers and connectors, or operational reliability and monitoring that platform provides. So we're introducing Codeful workflows, a new authoring model in Logic Apps that brings the best of both worlds. Full control with real code, but with all the power and productivity of the Logic Apps platform. So if that works for me, what didn't work for Balan, let me play the short video that shows you how that works. No. It's playing, but without the sound. Right. All right, so we'll share that later. sorry about the setup. So, okay, let me tell you what's under the hood and how that actually works. So, Codeful workflows are built on the durable task framework. So the same battle-tested orchestration engine that powers durable functions. That means that you get enterprise-grade stateful orchestration out of the box with support for long-running workflows, checkpoints, retries, and everything you can imagine that you need to run the workflow in production. So traditionally in Logic Apps, as you can see on the left side of the screen, you would use the declarative or visual expressions to define control flow, like conditions, loops, scopes. With Codeful workflow, you write all of that just using the real C# code, so no need to use the specific construct for that. It's an imperative orchestration with native language constructs, but it's tightly integrated into Logic Apps platform. So you get the full control with native code with all the operational integration benefits of the Logic Apps. So all Logic Apps connectors, both managed connectors and service providers that we introduced in Logic Apps Standard, are available as strongly typed SDK. That means inputs and outputs are fully typed, and you get full support from IntelliSense and compile time checks when working with them. You can call on any connector, whether it's sending email, writing to database, call an SAP API, just like calling a function from your code. So it's developer native experience, but with all the integration capabilities Logic Apps is known for. And the same typed SDK also gives you access to triggers, whether you are reacting to new messages in queue, HTTP requests, change in files, or emails. You can now define triggers entirely in code with strongly typed parameters. So whether you are building an event-driven process or scheduled automation, you can write and manage everything in the C# code and run it inside the Logic Apps. One of the big advantages is that you can actually run both declarative and Codeful workflow in the same Logic Apps. They share the same control plane, the same project structure, and the same deployment model. And because this all run inside the Logic Apps Standard or on Logic Apps Standard, you can actually deploy your Codeful workflows on-prem or to other clouds using Logic Apps hybrid offering. So looking ahead, we're also working to bring this Codeful experience into Azure integration environment, as well as business process tracking. So it becomes the first-class citizen across all Logic apps and Azure integration services experiences. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because one of the most powerful use cases for Codeful workflows is actually agentic orchestration. So you can use Codeful workflows to build and run agents with semantic kernel natively. You can define individual agents or orchestrate multiple agents working together to complete the goal. So using semantic kernel and durable task framework, you can build all kinds of multi-agent orchestrations and agentic workflows. You can also mix agents and deterministic steps, coordinate parallel or sequential execution, manage state, and trigger workflow from the real-time events. And best of all, agents can use the entire Logic Apps connector ecosystems as the tools which gives them which give them access to data and systems. So we're really excited about this. So this is a completely new model, completely new offering that comes to Azure Logic Apps, and we will be launching the private preview very soon. So if you want early access, please reach out to Wagner. Or stay tuned for our blog post for updates. We will also have a dedicated session tomorrow at 8:30, so where we'll go deeper into this with more demos and real life examples. So make sure to check this out. All right, I think that's all we had time to cover, but we've only scratched the surface. There is much more we've built and excited to show to you. Over the next 2 days, as I mentioned, you will hear from our teams across Logic Apps, API management, and messaging about all the new features we are bringing to Azure integration services. So whether you are building modern API, automating processes, connecting data across different systems, or orchestrating AI agents, Azure integration services is here for you to help you move faster and build smarter. So we can't wait to see what you will create with all these new capabilities. Thank you, and enjoy your conference.
Yeah, if I may add, I think our goal with the keynote was to kind of show you everything that's happening, and with AI specifically. There's a lot that's going on. It's changing every day. But we also believe we have a really stable platform with Azure Integration Services that helps you experiment with AI and progressively start learning about it and working it in. We'd love to hear from you. Like, we're here through the next 2 days. We're learning the space just as much as you are, so I'd love to hear what challenges you see, which areas interest you the most, and kind of use that as a learning opportunity with this community. So thank you.